This is imperfect versus preterite. Previous knowledge you need is how to conjugate things in imperfect tense and how to conjugate verbs in preterite tense. Also, it's good to know reading sentences for context clues. Now, why would we want to differentiate between preterite and imperfect? To tell the difference between these tenses, which are both past tense. All right, this whole board, you'll see imperfect is purple and preterite is green. So this whole board is about imperfect. So I'd title imperfect right here. Now, the main thing you need to know about imperfect is that it is repeated actions. It describes the past or setting up the scene. It is phrases, I used to do this, we used to do that, or he was doing, or you were doing something. Examples of uses of imperfect are, again, an ongoing action. So it can have a squiggly line saying, this is happening, and continuing. Okay? Habitual actions, scenery, weather, emotions and the verb estar, age and the verb tener, time or day or date. The ending or beginning time is unclear, or repetition or repeated events. Back to here. And if you'll notice, this creates the acronym O sweater. So it's a little tool to help you remember that. Now, as for clue words, if you see these words, it is probably imperfect. A menudo, cada día, cada semana, cada mes, con frecuencia, de vez en cuando, so from time to time. En aquella época, in that time or in that era, frecuentemente, generalmente, mucho, nunca, por un rato, for a time, siempre, todos los días, todas las noches, todos los veranos, or a veces, muchas veces, tantas veces, varias veces, at times, many times, several times, various times. Now this is all about preterite tense. So there's an X here. That means it's a completed action, done. So repeated was imperfect, completed is preterite. Describes an action event that happens once or twice, but is not habitual or frequently repeated. The beginning or specific end of an action or event. So it tells you, the game started at 7, or I finished my test, done, beginning or start time. Or an action or event that interrupts something else. We'll get to that in just a second. Clue words are ayer, anteayer, so this is last night, the night before last night, anoche, or excuse me, this is yesterday, the day before yesterday, anoche, last night, de repente, desde el primer momento, durante 2 siglos, el otro día, en ese momento, entonces, esta mañana, esta tarde, esta noche, la semana pasada, el mes pasado, el año pasado, or hace 2 años, hace 5 días. It's been this time since this happened. So a passing amount of time. Now up here, durante 2 siglos, you would think that's over a long period of time so that it would be imperfect. But since they specify the time frame of beginning and an end, 2 centuries, this set of 200 years, it is an example of preterite. And here are some clue verbs that imply a start or an end. Empezar, comenzar, iniciar are all to start or to begin. Terminar, cesar de, o parar, those are all ending terms. Now ignore this top part. I want you to look at the bottom part first, because this is a little easier right here. All right, these are all preterites, see they're all green, and these are all imperfect, they're all purple. So this is the same type of example, but used in different contexts. Okay, yesterday she walked to school. The clue word here is yesterday, or ayer. Also the word ends ed, she walked. So it's a specific amount of time, beginning, completed action, done. In this imperfect example, she used to walk to school every day. Used to implies a repeated or habitual action. So caminaba a la escuela every day, todos los días. This is a repeated event. That's why this is imperfect and that is preterite. For example 2, I went to a concert last night. Last night is a specific amount of time. Went last night, done, once. So went, fui. However here, I used to go to concerts every summer. Used to implies habitual an action, and every summer you definitely know it's repeated. So used to, iba, every summer, cada verano. In the last example, she started her project at 7. This is a specified start time, so that's definitely preterite. Started, empezó, at 7, and that specifies the time. However, if you just say she was working on the project, we're unclear whether what time she has started or ended or how long she's been working on it. So with the uncertainty of that, we leave it in imperfect. Was working, trabajaba, on the project. Now you could also say estaba trabajando, but that's not a verb tense that you're required to know at this point. All right, these practice examples, before you pause, just go through the 6 examples and identify whether you would do preterite or imperfect, or whether they're both. Now I just remembered I did not review the top of the previous slide, and I'd like to explain that. Okay, please look at this part up here. Now you have the squiggle, that means the event is going on, and here is your preterite action. It cut through. It has interrupted the ongoing action. So if there's something happening, this was happening when this happened, then it's called an interrupted action. Typically, the imperfect has the word mientras or something similar, and the preterite word, your clue word, will be if you see cuando or de repente. Now, cuando is not a fail-safe word, but if it's in the middle of the sentence, sometimes you can use it to determine that's preterite. For example, I was reading when the cat entered the room. Was reading implies that something was going on. This part right here is the was happening, okay? So, I was reading, leía. Or you could say estaba leyendo, but again, that verb tense you don't need to know. When, cuando, the cat entered the room. This was happening when the cat came in. So el gato entró mi cuarto. Came in my room. Entered. Done. Next sentence. While the teacher was talking, a student started sleeping. This implies, again, an event. While the teacher was talking, was doing something. This was happening when the other thing happened. So, mientras la profesora talking, hablaba, or estaba hablando. So, hablaba. A student started sleeping. Now, there's not a clue word right here, but you can tell that this has happened. It's a beginning event. Started. Specific amount of time. Un estudiante empezó a, and then to sleep is dormir. Empezó a dormir. Began to sleep. Because it's a start time, that's why it's that's why it's preterite. Now that you know how to do interrupting actions, you should be able to tell whether these sentences are imperfect, preterite, or an interrupted action. Please pause the video and determine that. All right, he began to eat. Began implies a specific start time, so that is going to be preterite. My family and I used to go to the beach every Saturday. Used to is your clue word here, and so is every Saturday. That is going to be imperfect. We were singing when the man yelled. Now, first of all, 2 things are going on in this sentence. Were singing and the man yelled. And plus you have when, which is a clue word to tell you that this is an interrupted action. So we're singing is imperfect, and the man yelled is preterite. That is an interrupted sentence. She was tall and skinny. That is describing a person that's just describing somebody. And if you're setting up the scene or talking about somebody's attributes, that is imperfect. While I was cooking, the phone rang. This is, again, two things are happening, cooking and the phone ringing. So while I was cooking, that's your imperfect action. The interrupting action, the phone rang, done, completed action. That's preterite. Last one, they ran yesterday. Ran. That's a completed action. And yesterday specifies exactly what time they ran, or the time frame that they ran, the day before. Preterite. Now we can write these in sentences. All right. He began to eat. Él comenzó a comer. He began to eat. My family and I, or we, nosotros, we used to go to the beach. Ir a la playa becomes íbamos a la playa. Every or each Saturday. Sábado. Note the accent on íbamos and the accent on sábado. We were singing when the man yelled. We were singing. Nosotros cantábamos or estábamos cantando when, cuando, the man yelled. El hombre, the verb is gritar, becomes gritó, yelled, interrupting action. She was tall and skinny. Ella era alta y flaca, skinny. Note that my adjectives agree with the fact that it's a girl, one girl. Ella era alta y flaca. While I was cooking, the phone rang. Well, mientras I was cooking, cocinar changes to cocinaba. The phone rang. El teléfono. We're going to use the word sounded, which is soñar. Sonó. Interrupted action. They ran yesterday. Ellos. The verb is correr. Changes to corrieron. And again, ayer is yesterday.